if your input shape equal to 784 and then you just keep only one layer, okay, and then keep like 10 nodes, that will become a multi-class logistic regression model. Okay, so if I do something like this, this is a multi-class logistic regression model, like 784 input connected with the 10 output nodes. Okay, with this also we can train the model, but we'll see it later, like how it will be trained. Okay, but imagine that this is your model now, and before training we are going to like visualize the weights of the layer, first layer. Okay, so if you just look at the input, so input is 784, imagine, and there are like 32 nodes in the hidden layer. So what will be the number of weights for each node in the first layer? How many connections will be there for each node in the first layer? Not for this example, but for this example. In all the 32 nodes, how many weights will be there for the first layer? Every node will have dash number of weights. Anyone? So the input shape is 784. It means those many number of weights will be there for each node in the first layer. Okay. So the 784 of like each node can be again reshaped into 28 by 28. So what we are doing here, we are like getting layers of, sorry, weights of all the layers, and then taking the only the first layer weights, and we are going to like just to plot the weights of the first layer. These are not like input, these are the weights of the first layer before the training. We have not trained the model yet. So what you see here is just small random weights. Looks like a television without the like a cable connection. These are all small random noises. Okay, small random weights. So after the training, we hope that this particular structure changes, because your model is going to train your weights and biases. Okay, so here we are compiling the model.compile. Loss is actually categorical cross entropy. What is a loss function? Loss function is something that computes the difference between your prediction and the actual value. Something like mean squared error. For classification, there is something called cross entropy. Okay, so cross entropy will find how much you are deviating from the actual label. If your prediction is y equal to 0, but your y cap is 0.1, you are actually deviating a little bit. Okay, so that will be computed using categorical cross entropy. Optimizer is RMS prop. Okay, and metrics is accuracy. You want to display the accuracy as a metrics. After the model is actually compiled, you can train the model. Training the model is very simple. Model.fit, that will actually train the model or fit the model to the data. X-train is your feature, Y-train is your target, and batch size equal to 128, which we already defined. Number of epochs is actually 2. Verbose equal to 1 is going to display the training progress, like line by line progress. If you keep verbose equal to 0, then this kind of progress will not be shown. So let us execute and then see how the model is training. You can see that the model is actually changing the accuracy. Great. So after 2 epochs, your training accuracy is actually 0.78, means 78% accuracy. You can see the loss is actually very high and then it is coming down. Accuracy was like very low and then it is going up. Okay, so loss and accuracy are two different factors. This is like mistakes, this is like accuracy. If you are reducing the mistake, obviously you are increasing the accuracy, right? So we have like run the model only for 2 epochs and we can see that the model has not trained well. So this particular problem is actually called underfitting. Underfitting means the model has not trained properly for the training set. Okay, what is the solution? Anybody? Any idea? What is the solution? Increase the epochs. Yes, professor. So we have trained the model only for 2 epochs. So it is something like you buy a book. If it is a easy book, it will take like only one read to memorize the content of the book. But sometimes if the book is difficult, then you don't know how many times it will take to memorize the entire book. So you need to read the book 10 times or 100 times. So increase the epoch. So previously we have done the epoch only for 2 times. Now I'm going to increase into 8. So this model is going to start from the third epoch. Okay, it is not going to train from scratch. It is actually resuming from the second epoch. So it is like going to train the model for up to the 10th epoch. Okay, and you can see the loss is actually coming down and the accuracy is going up, and your training accuracy is satisfiable. 95.53 accuracy is actually good. If you want more, you can maybe train for 10 more epochs, and again it won't be computed from scratch. It will be computed from wherever you have left. Okay, so literally this is actually the 20th epoch. Okay, so anybody notice that like initially when I execute the model for like 2 epochs, the accuracy was different for you and I, you know. So let me just rerun the model. Let me just like rerun the model for like 2 epochs. Every time the accuracy was different. Previously it was 78. Now it is 86. How come the model is actually having different accuracy? Every time I'm running, the model accuracy is actually changing. Even though the structure of the model is same, the data set is same, why accuracy is different? Any idea? Anybody who knows the answer, please let me know. So here, like within 2 epoch, I'm going to run it for my, again 8 more epochs. Accuracy is changing every time I'm running the model. Any idea why? So now the model achieved like really good accuracy, 96.13 after 10 epochs. Okay, so the training data shuffles within itself. No, professor. Actually, the shuffling was already done, and the order of the training data is the same. You are right, madam. You are right. Actually, like one factor can be shuffling of the training and testing set, but that random shuffling was already done. Here we are not dealing with the random shuffling. It is actually going through the X train and Y train sequentially only. Any idea? Any other reason? Refining the data. Okay. Okay. So sometimes the order of your training is also a matter. So maybe because of that, accuracy different. There is like one more factor that plays a vital role why accuracy is like very, very different. What about the random weights? The weights are actually random. So if you are starting with the random weights, and obviously the solution will also be like very different. So now the question is like, is it okay to have random weights and then okay to have different accuracies? Is it okay or not okay? Just a simple question. Is it okay to have random weights in the model and then like solution is different, accuracy is different? Is it okay every time we run it, or it is not okay? Okay. So some of the professors are feeling that it is not okay. Okay. So sometime we are like training the model and then we got a really good accuracy, and then you have written in the paper that I got 96.13 accuracy, but other people are like running the same model and the same data set and they are getting like a different accuracy, and people will just complain that you are actually putting some false numbers in the paper, you're like cheating. So that is the complaint will be. Okay. So to avoid that, there is something called a random seed. Okay, random seed process in the whole thing. So if you are like seeding the whole application with some seed, your random number generator will generate the same kind of random weights for the models. Okay, so if you are using the same random seed, you'll be getting the same model. Okay, so that is one thing. But the thing is, even if you are starting with the random weights, after maybe 100 or 200 epochs, everybody will be having the similar accuracy. The accuracy will be saturating at the same point. Okay, so it is like almost okay to have random weights. But if you want to regenerate your results or you want to reproduce your results, you need to like share the random seed. Okay, by running method we can change based on the requirements, shall we? Yeah, professor. Yeah, if we increase random seeds, may get the changes or not. No, the random seed is like a very simple function. So I'll show you like how the random seed will work. So here is a very simple code that says like np dot random. Okay, sorry, import numpy dot rand. Okay, every time you execute the line, it will be giving a different random weights. Okay, now the random weight is different. Now again it is different. Okay, but if I'm like seeding this numpy with a 0 or maybe just say like 100, and I'm creating like a random value. Okay, so now this is a random value with a seed of 100. So if I like generate the same, if I want to generate the same random value, I can give the same random seed and then get the random value. So every time when you run it, you will get the same random values. Okay, but if I just execute it one more time, the random value will be different. Okay, but if I seed it, you will get the same value. For example, there is a like a random value with a seed 100, there is a random value with the seed 99. If you want to regenerate the same random weights, I will give it like a 99 and I will generate the same random weights. Okay, so that is a like importance of the seed. Seed is actually just a like input. Usually when you generate a random like a number, the seed will be usually taken as a time, like current time, and the current time will not be same every time. It will be different every time. So it will be like taking the Kak time, or sometime like it will be taking the universal time and then give it as a seed. But you can give any seed and then regenerate the same random weights. So when you create application, all you need to do is you need to share this key random weight, random seed value, so that people will be generating the same random weights. Okay, great. So now the underfitting scenario has been gone, that we train the model well for the training, but we need to verify whether the model is like fitting well for the unknown samples also. So we try to test the model with the model.evaluate. Model.evaluate will just try to like evaluate the model, will try to judge whether the model has done any mistake or not. Okay, so it is not going to train the model, it is just going to evaluate the model. So it will receive like two scores. Score number 0 will be the last value. Score number 1 will be the accuracy value. So if I execute it, it will give the accuracy 0.9574. It means 95% of accuracy for the unknown samples. So this model is obviously not overfitting because it is giving like a really good accuracy for the unknown samples also. Okay. So this is like obvious. When do you think the model will overfit? I will ask you a question. When do you think the model will actually overfit? This case, like a model is not overfitting. When do you think that model give a good accuracy for training and very bad accuracy for testing? When it will happen? So it depends upon the epochs and activation function. Is it correct? Yes, yes, professor. It is actually totally depending upon the activation function. And so if you train the model with the different activation, then the speed of the training as well as the accuracy of your model will be different also. Some activation functions are very slow. Some activation functions are very simple, but they are very accurate. Unexpected data in real-time observation. Yes, professor, that is really cool answer. That sometime we are expecting a totally different data from real circumstance, so then that model will be failing. Okay, so we will see that scenario also when the model will be underfitting, sorry, overfitting. So this is weights after the training. Let me just run it. So previously the model was actually having random weights, and after the training the model is now having trained weights. Okay, it's not nice anymore. It is actually some kind of features. Every node is actually trying to look at different feature from input. Okay, cool. So this is actually a pattern. So there is 32 patterns because 32 nodes in the hidden layer, first hidden layer. So I have taken only the first hidden layer because that is easy to resize into 28 by 28. And for second layer, the number of weights will be 32. It's not easy to convert into square matrix. Okay, so I have given here 28 by 28 for the first layer. Okay, it is really good. So you can see that every one of the node is looking at different patterns, and there is no redundancy. Okay, so if two of the nodes are having similar structure, it means they are doing the same job. Okay, so these are something that looks like the maybe pen scratches. Okay, looking like two. So the thing is, if your input is having a maybe a edge like this, then this particular node will be activated because it is matching with the input. Okay, so for different people the observation will be different. Okay, all right. So now we can give a single sample to the image and then do the prediction. So model.predict is actually prediction, and it will not give accuracy, it will just give the prediction value. So otherwise technically we call it inference. What is inference? Inference means we take a trained model and then inferring the output from the image. Okay, so here we are giving the testing set one sample and then taking the prediction, and in the prediction we are putting a threshold more than 0.5 is actually binarized. So the prediction is actually some 10 outputs. This is actually 10 activations from your model. The model is having 10 nodes in the output. So these are the 10 activation. Out of them we want to find the maximum activation. So simply there is a one function which is called argmax that will tell you which node is actually the maximum activation, having maximum activation. This is the node with the maximum activation, 9.9 into 10 power minus 1. So it means it has a activation of 0.99633, means that model is giving a really good confidence score. Okay, so even if you do prediction.sum, the sum will be actually near 1 because the probability 1 is actually distributed among multiple nodes. That is the purpose of softmax. So this particular activation function softmax will try to distribute the accuracy, probability 1 among multiple nodes of your output. Okay, so it will encourage one of the nodes to have a higher activation, other nodes to have a low activation. You can see that all the other nodes are having activation lesser than 0.001, like 10 power 3. Okay, great. So this is the prediction from the model. Let's see the actual value. Okay, this is the prediction and this is the actual image. Actual image contains 5 and the prediction is also 5. Okay, it's a good model. So we have just trained the model. We have trained the model for more epochs. We tested the model with the testing set, and we have done the inference with the model with the unknown samples, and we have done all these things only with the data set sample. So let us actually download one image which is actually not part of your data set. And oh God, it's not working. Okay. So I'll give you one more solution how we can solve it. So let us download one image like a digit 4 or digit 3. Okay. Something that has so I think that particular digit was there already, digit 3. Oh, let me just take it from the okay, let me just download this image, digit 3. Okay, so open a new tab, just copy the URL. I'll just paste the URL. Everybody, please. Okay, so everybody, please use this particular URL. That URL which was given is not working. So I'm going to download this particular URL. Okay, yeah. So now this digit is actually downloaded and it is in your local folder of your Colab, which is actually here like number 16 - something like that. So what we can do, we can just rename this particular image as a digit.jpg. So that the below code is actually using the digit.jpg. For loading the image and then manipulating the image for cropping and then resizing, there is a package called OpenCV. I think those who already studied the computer vision or image processing might know this particular package called OpenCV. So the OpenCV package is a very useful package for image processing and computer vision. So the CV2 is actually the Python version for the OpenCV. So from CV2, we are reading the image as a color image. Okay, and usually the image is read as a, what do you call? It is read as a BGR image. So we need to like convert into RGB image. Okay, the shape of the image is actually 972 by 1280 by 3. It is actually a color image. It looks like a black and white image, but it has 3 channels. It's a color image. So you need to actually resize the image into 28 by 28, convert the image into a grayscale image. Okay, only then we can give it to the model. So now this is the downsampled version of the original image. Okay, Professor Rossiu SPK, please mute. So I will request the organizer to please mute this participant, Professor Rauzu SPK. Getting some, yeah. So this is actually the like original image, and here we are like downsampling the image into 28 by 28, and we are actually converting into a grayscale image. So this is the image resized, and now you can see the shape of the image that will be just 28 by 28. So again, this image can be given as an input to the model because this image is actually a high resolution square, not a square image, rectangle image with the 3 channels. So we can give this as an input to the model. So before we give it, we need to flatten this image into a 784 vector. So you need to like do dot reshaping. Okay. So you can reshape it and then convert into 784 by 1 and then give it to the models. Okay. So that is what we give. We try to reshape the model into, sorry, data into 784 and then give it to the model and then get the prediction. Let's see whether it predict it as digit 3. Yes, it is predicting the this particular image as a digit 3 with a confidence score of 0.9758. This is a really good score. The model has given a high score for this particular image. Okay. So can we test with the other images like digit 4? Let's see. Let's see this one. No, I think we need a like a straight image with the PNG as a, yeah, we want a PNG image. So let me just paste this particular image. So how we can do, we can download the image and then convert into, so let us like rename this file as digit 1 and then rename the other one as digit.png. Okay, so it's a PNG image. You need to like keep it like sorry, it will be PNG. You know, PNG is like 3 channel. Sometimes the PNG image will have a 4 channel. Okay, so let us say that we are reshaping the image. Great. So this is the grayscale version of the above image. Let us see whether the model is giving, you know, like the model still thinks that it is actually belonging to digit 3. Yeah, I think image resize is the like same image. Yeah. So the predicted digit is actually again 3. The model is actually not performing well for this kind of image. Okay. Any reason why it is not working well? Any reason? Can anybody tell that why it is not working well for this particular image? Let's say that I converted the image into like 1 minus, I just converted or just inverted the image into like a negative image. So let me just do the same thing. 1 minus this one. Still it is saving. So previously the image was actually like white background and then black handwriting. Okay. But our training set contains only like a black background and then white handwriting. Okay. So this is a kind of image which is not expected from the model. Okay. So the same thing that if you are trying to like work with this digit also, it will not work because this particular image is containing like white background and then black foreground, but our data set contains only black background and then white foreground. Okay, so this is a problem and it can be solved by using data augmentation. So we can create one more set of data by inverting it and then adding to the original data set. Okay, then it will be working fine. So please share your GitHub username. Okay, madam. So let me just share this GitHub username. Yeah, one thing is like F is actually having like a more, the 4 is actually having more colors, and then it is not properly the black and white image. It is like a half baked, like grayscale image. Okay, and then the background is also white. Okay, so the problem can be solved by using data augmentation, where existing data can be like assimilated with new data. So for data augmentation, there is a package in Python called imgag, image augmentation, imgaug. Okay, this package will help you to create different like augmented samples for the same data set. Okay, so if you have a single image like this, and then it will change the color, add some noise, and then randomly take some different parts of the image, and then it will simulate some new data with like different rotation, and then scaling, cropping, random cropping. Okay, so very useful package for doing image augmentation. So this is like a very nice package. But in Keras, there is already a built-in data augmenter, okay, which will help you to do data augmentation. Great. My YouTube channel name, yes. So please go to YouTube and then search for this funny name called Maja Matrix. So I kept this name Maja Matrix because people hate Matrix, but it should be like giving pleasure, Maja. Okay. So that is my YouTube channel link. And there is like 52 videos. All are like 1 hour, 1.5 hour videos with both hands-on and theory, all in Tamil. Only for Tamil. So I cover the whole deep learning that is already over. Now I am actually doing machine learning. We are in overfitting, underfitting, and regularization. Okay, great. Okay, so from here you try to like tackle the failure cases, and then for solving the failure case, you try to do some tactics. Okay, so I'll show you one more place where your model will be like underfitting, sorry, overfitting. So imagine that I am going to like train the model with a lesser number of training samples. Okay, so I am going to show the model only like from 0 to 1000. Okay, so if your training set is very small, then what will happen? The model will go through only the few varieties of training. So what will happen? The training accuracy will be good. Okay, so it is giving like a 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 7. Let me just do it for like maybe 50 epochs. Okay, accuracy is improving. Okay, so 89 accuracy. Okay, 97 accuracy. So I have just run the model for I think maybe 100 epochs with the subset of your training set, just 1000 samples. Okay, so this is not underfitting model because the model is actually giving good accuracy for the training. But the only thing is I have executed for more number of epochs. Okay, so if I test this model with 10,000 samples, obviously the model will be overfitting. You see, the training accuracy was 97, but the testing accuracy is actually 81 only because your model has not gone through different varieties of your training. The model has gone through only a subset of your training. Okay, so what you are going to do, you are going to just take the old model and you are going to retrain the model with the whole original data set. I have not changed the model. I am going to retrain the previous model, the overfitting model, and I'm going to execute for 10 more epochs. So previously the accuracy was 97, but now it is resuming from 86 because you know why? For the unknown 59,000 sample, it is doing the training again. Previously it has done only for 1000 samples. Now it is doing for unknown 59,000 samples. Okay, so now the training is been done, and this is the overfitting accuracy. Let us see after the retraining whether the accuracy is increased or not. Yes, increased. So the conclusion is, when your model goes through a lot of images and a lot of varieties of data, then the overfitting will never happen. Okay. So it should not be just the number of samples. It should be also the difference or the variety within your data. Imagine that your model is being trained on only samples from one particular place. Okay. Imagine that you are training for cat versus dog classifier based on Indian cats and Indian dogs. You know, like how these Indian cats and Indian dogs look like. Indian dogs sometimes look like a bigger cat, and the Indian bigger cats are looking like miniature cats. So they're not like fed very well, and they are like stealing some food from here and there, and then they're not like looking good like it should be. Okay, it can look good, but they're not like looking good as Western cats. Okay, you train the model based on the Indian cats, street cats, and the street dogs, and then if you train based on this data set, and then you deploy the model in some Western country, the Western country, the cats will look like a dog, then dogs will be looking like kannukutti. Okay, some of the foreign dogs, they look like eruma kannukutti. It will look like really big. So then the model will obviously fail. So it should not be just the number of sample, it should be like a more variety within the sample. Okay. So even if you have trained with 1 million Indian cats, it is not going to help you in predicting the Western cats, because the 1 million is a good number, but it has only like one variety. It does not have like other varieties. Okay. So again, the problem with this particular data set is it is having only white background and then black background and then white writing. But in real, like mentioned by one of the participants, that what happens if the real digits are actually very, very different from the training. Just imagine, some of them are like having different structure, some of them having like some pattern, some of them they are not even handwritten, they are like having some kind of style within that. Okay, so in the real time the model has to tackle all these things, and we cannot complain that no, we did not train with this kind of images, so we cannot handle it. You cannot say like that. So if you are commercially giving this as an application, then other people will be expecting that it has to recognize every other sample. See, you have to recognize 4 from this. How? That is a challenge. Okay, so this is how you can actually play with the model. This is how you can like train the model. Okay, so part 2 I'm going to tell you. So the model that we trained till now is actually in the RAM memory only. If you want to have like a model in your disk, then what you need to do is like you need to save your model to the disk. So how you can do that? So the model .2 JSON will convert your model into a JSON like structure. Okay, and this JSON file can be like written as a file in the disk, JSON file. So if you want to read, like construct the model from the JSON file, you can do it. Okay, so the structure of the model will be saved as a JSON file, and the weights of the model will be saved as a H5 file. H5 is a very famous file format for storing matrices. So it's called HDF5, hierarchical data format in cloud computing or cloud architectures. Okay, so you try to save the model weights as a HI file. So if you execute this particular file, then you'll be saving the model.h5, which contains like a 124 KB model.json, which contains just the JSON description of your model. The structure of the model will be kept as a description. Okay. The loading model, like you can load the model, or you want to like build the model from the JSON, you can like read the JSON file as a file, and we can just create a model from JSON using the loaded JSON. And this will be the loaded model. Loaded model.load weights will be loading the weights which are already there. So now this loaded model.summary will show you the same model, because this model is being constructed from the previous model what we trained. And then if you want to retrain the same model, you can change the like loss function, you can change the optimizer and accuracy, you can compile the model, you can retrain the model. So I'm going to retrain the model for 2 more epochs, and you can see the accuracy is actually starting from 96, not from 0. You know why it starts from 96? Because the model is actually not trained from scratch, it is actually a trained model. What I have trained here, it is actually saved into the disk. So if you want to share your model, trained model, to other people, you can actually download this HY file and then keep it in your Google Drive, and then give the Google Drive link in your GitHub package. Okay. So people want to download your model, trained model, they can go there and then download it. Okay. So here is like a part 3 and part 4 for you to play with. So if you want to like experiment with the different activation functions, you can do it. If you want to experiment with the different like number of nodes in the first layer, you can do it, and then different number of layers in your layers in your network, you can play with that also. Okay. So here is like a 20 layer or 25 layer neural network. It's a very deep neural network, but sometimes it will not be giving a good accuracy what we are expecting. Okay. So you cannot go like more deep sometime, and you can see that the accuracy is not really improving. It's not like as per the expectation. So model is taking too much time to train, but it is not training also. Okay. So sometime having more layer is actually a problem. It is like a deep shallow network. It's not like a deep wide network. It is like a very thin network with just like 8 nodes in every layer. Okay. So neural network with more than 2 layers is actually called a deep neural network. But if you keep the number of layers into more and more, sometimes the accuracy may decrease also. Okay. Great. So any doubts you have, please let me know. We can have like some doubt clearing session. I think that will be much more better.
Dear participants, if you do have questions, kindly post your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute your audio and then ask questions.
Okay. So let me just like maybe give you some few tutorials or some links where you can actually learn this technology. I should not be self-promoting myself in the meeting, but anyway, my channel also like has some good number of videos all in Tamil. Okay. But from where I learned, that is actually CS231N from Stanford. So there is like a winter 231 and 231 in the spring. So they have like 15 lectures, and I learned a lot from these lectures only. from this one cool guy called Andrej Karpathy. And he's actually now in a very good position. So all these are like really good videos. So I learned deep learning, CNN from these videos only. Okay. So the CS231N also contains some kind of reading material. Let me find that particular reading material. Yes, this is actually the reading material from their side. Okay, so from image classification, they'll be having like a very simple explanation, like how image classification works. And then the hyperparameter tuning from like from KNN, they will try to like do with the support vector machine. From there, they will try to like explain the gradient descent optimization and then back propagation neural network. So if you just go through each and every link, they will have, like you'll understand a lot of things, like why we are using neural network and how we are actually doing the classification. Okay, so linear classification, from linear classification, how the neural network actually like works. If you want to learn about SVM also, this is a really good site to learn about SVM. Okay, and this is like one more link, CS231. Yeah, so one more. Okay, Professor Badivambige, I'm a first year PhD scholar. I'm going to do research in deep learning. Any suggestions? So please don't worry about the infrastructure. You can do a lot of miracle within this Google Colab platform. So even with a simple MNIST like a data set also, we can do a lot of miracle. Still people are working with the fashion MNIST and then MNIST. Please don't think that for deep learning, you need a really big infrastructure or like a big server for doing the research. You can simply do the deep learning research with just open source, Google Colab, and just a simple data sets itself. Okay. The choice should be wise. It cannot be something like we take a big data set and then we want to do it in here. That cannot be done. But the selection of problems should be something like that. You should select a problem which is feasible. So we have like a problem in the one end, and then we have our own like capabilities in the other end. What is your capability? What algorithm that you know, and then what capacity that you have, what infrastructure that you have, what time you have. Okay, and what is your working style also. Based on that, you choose a problem and then you try to solve the problem within that particular time constraint. So PhD, I think it's all about management only. It's like I know many people who are hard workers, they struggle really a lot to complete a PhD. And sometimes I know a lot of hard workers, they don't want to do a hard work and then they just like do things in a very higher level and then they want to get a degree, but they don't benefit from that also. So that is my kind opinion. Okay. So for PhD, with the deep learning, it's very easy to publish publications, good publications. Okay. But it's all about management, time management, and decision making. Great. So other sources like something called a deep learning book from MIT Press. So there is like a deeplearning.org. This is from MIT Press and written by a guy called Goodfellow, Ian Goodfellow. He's really a good fellow, written a really good book. So this book will help you to understand basic mathematics, linear algebra, probability, information theory, numerical computation, then machine learning basics. All the basics of machine learning, deep learning will be covered in the part 1. And please read the part 2. Please don't do the part 3. That will like confuse you a lot. In the part 3, you can go up to maybe like 14 or 15. I tried 2 years of my time reading about this entire book, and then I really learned a lot. Okay, but anyway, book reading is actually not suggested these days, but it's a really good book. So this book contains some like mathematical part also. Please don't get like very much involved and then go deep into the mathematics, because it will actually take a lot of your time, and then sometime it won't be feasible. Okay, so whichever that you like, you try to read it. Try to read about recurrent, don't read about recursive net. Okay, you can skip this 15 16 Monte Carlo and then deep generative models, all this you can skip. Okay, so otherwise I'll recommend you to like read blocks like Medium, or you can read the blogs in towards data science, and that will keep you updated with the current technology. There is a analytics Vidya also. Okay, so that is also good site. So there is a Kaggle competitions. So in Kaggle you can like participate in competition and then get yourself more familiar with the current state of the art. So there is one more link called the ML competitions. ML contest, yeah, ML contest. That link will give you like all the competition which are currently happening. So this is a really good link. ML competitions, mlcontest.com. So there is one more competition link called Quadalab, which is a popular place for doing the data related competitions. Quadalab. Okay, so all the recent competitions will be displayed here. So the competitions showcased in this Quadalab are sometimes actually from big conferences. Okay, so if you win this competition, then you can publish your paper in the ICLR 2021 or ICLR HID. So all the like top conferences try to post their competition here, and if you get a good rank in this competition, then they will choose it as a like maybe work notes paper. You don't need to pay like a big amount of fee, and you can freely publish your paper in a big conference. Okay, so if you do data related competition, then it is really good for you. Quadalab, and then there is I think few more data competition sites also. There is I think in Analytics Vidya also there is competitions. Yeah, data science blogathon, loan prediction, big mart sales prediction, fashion MNIST, identify the apparels, identify the digits. These are all practice problems, but real problems will be there. These are like you can participate in some live hackathons and then codathons. That will be very useful. Yeah. Okay then, so if you have any queries, then you can always reach me out. Yes. Sridhar.swaminathan@bennett.edu.in and sridhar@gmail.com. So you can reach me out if you have any doubts or like any collaboration. I'm always welcome. So thank you so much for joining today, and I'm very, very happy to be part of this whole FDP.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sridhar. Nice presentation. So on behalf of the Department of Computer Science and Applications and the organizing team of AIMS 2021, we extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Sridhar Swaminathan for handling 2 sessions in AIMS 2021. It's needless to say that as you all have witnessed, that the lectures are well organized, delivered in a simple language with great clarity, and also augmented with neatly designed hands-on exercises. Normally, it's difficult to engage the learners in the afternoon session, but you succeeded. You captivated the attention of the participants through your lively lectures with interesting examples and several resource sites. So we thank you, Dr. Sridhar, for being part of AIMS 2021. Thank you again. Thanks again.
Thank you, Shanti ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So,
thank you all participants. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah. For the participants, I think the feedback link has been posted 15 minutes earlier. So kindly fill up the feedback form. And tomorrow, the first session starts at exactly 9:30 a.m. So I request all the participants to log in like 15 minutes before the session timing. Hope you all had a happy learning today. Let's see you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you all.